There's lots of different ways to make improvements to your health and well-being. One of the best ways I know of is what I would call the substitution method of improving your health. This is especially beneficial for people that don't have massive reserves of willpower and also don't want too much disruption to their lives. You may have a very busy life, you may have a lot of commitments, especially with your time and schedule. You may even have a lot of financial constraints. And so I find the substitution method pretty good because what it allows you to do is more or less keep the same schedule, the same expenditures, the same approach to life without having to make huge upheavals and also without really thinking about some of the effects. The first thing you can do is swap foods. So if for instance you are quite a regular fast food eater, um, it's quite a simple approach to swap around what you eat. So for instance, you got to be prepared for this because fast food in of itself is one of the appeals of it is it's convenient, i.e. that you don't have to go home and cook it. You can just get it where you want. So what you would need to do would be to equip yourself with foods on the go. As you can see in the picture, there are a lot of different fruits and vegetables that need no cooking that you can just carry around with you. Bananas, carrots, apples, they're really good. After a while you may even find you like the taste of things like raw broccoli and raw cauliflower, but most people don't like those at first. Another good thing to carry around with you is a bag of nuts, not the salted oiled type of salted peanut that you can buy, but I'm talking about mixed nuts that are there in their fairly natural state without any additives. So things like almonds, cashews, walnuts, peanuts in their shells, macadamia nuts. These are very, very filling. You can have them to hand anytime you want. And actually they'll save you a lot of money in the long run. Just carrying around some apples and nuts, I find is a real easy substitution to make. And it actually saves you time because you don't actually have to go to the fast food restaurant. You can keep nuts and fruit in your bag or in your desk at work or at school or wherever, but they nuts last a long time, so do apples. And one of the good things with apples as well is I think they've got a substance in them called pectin, which is actually an appetite suppressor. So if you're trying to lose some body fat, then apples are a good way to go. Even a large apple only contains about 100 calories, and it's quite filling because it's full of fibre. It's got some fruit sugars in it called fructose, and lots of other vitamins and minerals as well. Along with nuts, that will provide a handful of nuts will provide you with a lot of carbohydrates, proteins, and healthy fats. So that's an easy substitution to make from the fast food scenario. The other thing to realise is with fast food, it's very calorifically dense, whereas natural whole foods aren't, generally speaking. Nuts can be quite calorifically dense, but they tend to fill you up so fast and they take quite a lot of chewing that you're not really going to chomp through 1,000 calories of nuts in one sitting. And apples and carrots and other green veggies like broccoli, there's for their bulk, there's hardly any calories in them. Whereas compared to things like French fries, hamburgers, fried chicken, those things are so calorifically dense and often full of sugars and fats that they really, really make you pile on the pounds fast. You got to think big, so you don't need to skimp. That's another good thing about choosing whole foods. Um, you can eat a lot of them without putting on weight. In fact, the more you eat of them, the healthier you're probably going to get because they're full of fibre and vitamins and minerals. You won't need to starve, unlike a conventional calorie controlled diet. You don't really need to count calories if you're picking the right foods. And the other thing is once you've weaned yourself off the fast foods with all their salt and sugar and fat, your taste buds will readapt and you'll be able to re-educate them, and they'll enjoy the new tastes of these healthier options. And really is just switching things round. So instead of driving to the the McDonald's or the Burger King or whatever, just carry some fruit and nuts around with you and you'll be fine. Another thing to do is to substitute activities. If you look at the picture on the left, that's one of the biggest problems we've got, is sedentary leisure time. Just vegging out in front of a TV won't do you any favours. You're burning 0 calories, well, almost 0 calories, additional 0 calories. You are burning calories because your metabolism's still ticking over. But the other thing to realise is that if you are just seated all the time, there is a certain gene in the body that is responsible for kick-starting fat burning, and that gene can actually be kind of put into a dormant mode if you are too sedentary. So you've got to watch that you don't sit down for too long. I've heard certain different recommendations, but if you can get up every 10 minutes and walk about for a minute or two, that should make sure that your fat gene is switched on permanently. The other good thing you could do is get up out of your seat, whether you're at home or at the office, and walk up and down stairs for a couple of minutes. So if you did that every 10 to 15 minutes for a couple of minutes, that would break that cycle of being just sedentary and not using up your body's stored fat. The other thing, if you look to the picture on the right, is that you can actually still enjoy the same activities. We're not saying this is, remember we're talking about substituting activities. So you could still actually watch TV, but instead of sitting, you could walk on a treadmill or sit on an exercise bike. People don't walk enough. Walking is the most basic human exercise there is, and I'm not such a fan of jogging myself because I've got bad knees, and I find that jogging itself gives you bad knees. But I find even with a bad knee, I can walk virtually all day long as I've got the right shoes on. And I know after a week or two of walking for an hour or two a day that it definitely slims my waist. So don't be a victim of the machines. They're all around us. They make us lazy, and they're not good for your health. You can drive, places where you could walk. So instead of driving to the supermarket, walk there, even if it takes you half an hour. It'd be good exercise walking there and back, especially if you're carrying some bags. Take the flight of steps rather than the escalator. These simple substitutions make a massive difference over time. And this is the end result of inactivity. So machines themselves, yes, they're useful for us, but they can take over where our body really should be in control. You need to move around, and that's a fundamental facet of human existence. A lot of people, as soon as they stop moving, they get big problems. And it can start with an injury. For instance, you could break your leg, and you could end up just not bothering to move around, feeling sorry for yourself, and before you know it, you've piled on 20 pounds, and you may have even lost your your enthusiasm to move about. I watched a documentary not long ago about one of the world's oldest men, and he was 102 and he was still working, and they asked him for the secret of his longevity, and he just simply stated, keep moving. Substituting bad habits. Now, alcohol consumption and the consumption of fizzy, sugary drinks both pile on unwanted flab. But it's quite a simple task to switch these things around as well. I love smoothies. You don't have to make your own. You can buy them, but making them yourself is a lot more fun. It's a lot cheaper, and you've got more choice in terms of the flavors. So I'd suggest you start looking at things like fruit smoothies, or even if you really, because if you pile in a load of bananas and different things in a fruit smoothie, the calories can still add up. But if you just want to sip, things like tonic water and carbonated mineral water are great. You still get the effect of having something sort of fizzy in your mouth and throat, and it's not exactly a beer, but if you're just going to chill out and relax, there's no need to sit there with beers. A bottle of beer might have 200 to 300 calories. A glass of wine about 100, 150. So by the end of the evening, you could have had an extra 500 to 800 calories, depending on how much you drink. Substituting bad habits. This is probably one of the most controversial aspects. Cigarette smoking and how that affects health is well known. What isn't so well known is the substitutes out there. Nicotine patches are one that can help you still get a nicotine fix for a while you're trying to wean off the tobacco. But generally speaking, they have quite a low success rate in helping people to quit totally. And also the other thing is you won't swap nicotine patches for cigarettes as a long-term solution. The problem with patches is that they don't emulate any of the physical coordination that goes with the habit of smoking, whereas electronic cigarettes do. We know the health effects of cigarettes. The switch to electronic cigarettes immediately eliminates several thousand toxic substances. The only one you're left with, which isn't particularly toxic, is nicotine. Even though it is addictive, you can control the dose quite carefully with electronic cigarettes. Yeah, so as I said, the 4,000 bad chemicals in a tobacco cigarette, it's quite scary reading. If you look there, paint stripper, lighter fuel, rocket fuel, toilet cleaner, they're not exactly the same substances poured into cigarettes, but the same chemicals are used that are in paint strippers. So for instance, there's acetone in paint stripper, there's also acetone in cigarettes. There's carbon monoxide in exhaust fumes, and there's also carbon monoxide in cigarettes. So you get my drift. Radioactive substances like polonium-210, that was what killed the one of those Russian guys a couple of years back in London. I think he was poisoned with a polonium-210 capsule. So you can see it's actually deadly. Phenol, which is used in disinfectant, also present in cigarettes. So there's a very long list of these substances. So the substitution from tobacco-based cigarettes to electronic cigarettes immediately eliminates all of those except the nicotine. So you're left with 1 out of 4,000, which is a pretty good move. I think that's probably the biggest immediate health danger to most people is either alcohol or cigarettes. There isn't really a substitute for alcohol that gives you the same sort of buzz, so to speak, but there is for cigarettes. So I found that I did not have the willpower to completely cut them out, and I just enjoy the process of picking up something, putting it in my mouth and taking a puff. But you'll definitely find if you switch to electronic cigarettes that your lungs and everything else clears up, you sleep a lot better, your appetite returns, your taste buds aren't affected, so you actually help yourself to enjoy healthier foods as well, which is a big bonus. So anyway, have a click on the link underneath the video. Visit electroniccigarette.uk.com. That's where I get mine. Really good service. You can ring them up any time. I knew nothing about electronic cigarettes when I didn't even have a friend that had smoked them, but I saw a few videos on them, and I gave these people a ring, and they were really, really helpful. And also the other thing I've noticed, it NAF save you a lot of money. You switch to an e-cig smoking, and my goodness, well, the vaping as they call it, and you will save yourself a fortune. So cheers, but click on the link below to have a look. Thank you.